If we're ready to begin, I guess we'll begin with the president of our congregation, Liz Ravitch, who will welcome you all.
Welcome, everybody. Most of you know me. I'm one of the co-presidents at Bethel in Yardley, Pennsylvania. We're hosting this event. I'm so excited to go to Nigeria today. I did watch the documentary over the weekend, and I was fascinated. Every minute I watched it, I learned something new. So I'm very excited to be able to speak with some of you from that community. And I'm going to kick it back to Rabbi Weiss now.
Great. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see everyone here. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you so much, Helene. And so I will first just share kind of how I learned about this community is actually the way that Liz mentioned was the documentary about almost 10 years ago, not quite 10 years ago, when I was living in New York City. We were walking on the street, I think it was on Broadway actually, and there was a poster for this amazing film. And I noticed that it said it was being premiered, the world premiere at the Quad Cinema in the East Village, or the West Village. And so I turned to Rabbi Jonah and I said, we have to go check this out. And so we went there, and as luck would have it, it was a world premiere. And the filmmaker, Canadian Jewish filmmaker, Jeff Lieberman, was actually there presenting the film. And so the film just captured our imagination. We had no idea about these. They're called Igbo Jews, IGBO. And there's an incredibly dedicated and passionate and amazing community, actually a series of communities all over Nigeria who are Jewish and are practicing Jews, who do Shabbat like we do services, they keep kosher, they do all these things. And they do it completely lay-led. In other words, they don't have any rabbis down there. And so we developed a relationship with Jeff, the filmmaker, who had connected us with some of the members of the community. And we've had some interaction over the years with them. And so we're so honored and excited to be having this program in conjunction with the Jewish community in Abuja, Nigeria. Now, there are two communities that might be here tonight in Nigeria. The one where we have the most contacts is with Tikvat Yisrael, a community there. There's also a community that some people might show up from Har HaKodesh, which is another community in the Nigerian Jewish community. So like last week, we'll do the format where we start with some sharing about our two communities, just kind of open sharing about what life is like both here in Yardley, Pennsylvania, and in what Jewish life is like in Abuja, Nigeria. So let's see here. Lou will be representing us from Yardley, and Chike, I think you'll be representing from Nigeria. Who would like to jump in first?
Picture the video?
No. Hello? Do you want me to
Hey,
jump
Lou.
in?
You can jump in, absolutely. Go for it.
Well, this is a real special honor because in a moment I'm going to reveal something that I think the Nigerians, we have a friend in common. But first, let me talk a little bit about Yardley, Pennsylvania, and Bucks County. There's about 50 to 60,000 Jews in Bucks County, about 350,000 Jews in the greater Philadelphia area. So there's a good representation of the greater Philadelphia area in the northern suburb of Yardley, Bucks County. We're across the road from Trenton, New Jersey, and there's a lot of connections between New Jersey and Pennsylvania here. One of the highlights of the synagogue, one of the guiding special pieces that the synagogue does for the Jewish community is a daily minyan and evening minyan every day of the week. So I got involved with the synagogue because my mom passed, and after she passed, I spent a year going to services in the morning. And one of the leaders of the congregation, wonderful man who passed, when my time was up, he said, Lou, you're a Kohen. Do you want to come to services on Tuesday or Thursday? And I chose Thursdays up until recently. But, and my brain is a little bit foggy right now, so I apologize if I'm not completely straight. But it's one of the, that was one of the main synagogues in Yardley, roughly about 200 families, and it's a mainstay for the community. Now let me get to where the connection is. In 2005, was it 2004 or 2004, I started working for the Israeli consul in Philadelphia, and guess who was my boss? Uri Palti, who was became ambassador to Nigeria. So here we got something in common already. You guys know Uri. Uri's family was with the foreign ministry. He was a long time with the foreign ministry. And the joke we had is before there was Google, there was Uri, because he knew everybody. Okay, I shared mine.
Did we get lost?
Lou, you there?
Oh,
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Is that, are you,
Did I say enough? You want more?
well, maybe tell them a little bit about kind of hidden gems of our area, kind of things that are special to our greater, because, you know, you've had a lot of experience working not only in the Yardley, but kind of the greater Philadelphia Jewish area.
Philadelphia is an amazing community. It's, I think, the fourth largest Jewish community in the country. Of note here is the National Museum of American Jewish History. Congregation Mikveh Israel is the second oldest synagogue in the country, Sephardic synagogue. We're actually doing a program there, if I can do my own self-promotion. Today I sent an invitation to the Prime Minister of Israel to come to Philadelphia to celebrate the 45th anniversary of the Entebbe rescue. And actually, 5 years ago, he didn't come to Philadelphia because he went to Uganda near Nigeria. He went to Entebbe itself. So let's see, lots of great things about Philadelphia, and Yardley and Bucks County is the northeastern.
The first Sephardic synagogue, right?
It's the second Sephardic synagogue.
Oh, okay.
Lots of things. It's a wonderful Jewish community, and anything else? I'm kind of. What else you want to know?
Well, one of the topics for today, actually, the main kind of topic is going to be about expressing our Judaism publicly. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what it's like as a Jew. You know, how do you feel about outwardly showing signs of being Jewish in our area?
We have a pretty free and open society. Okay, so Philadelphia Jewish community has a lot of key points. The Reconstructionist movement is based in the suburbs of Philadelphia. The conservative movement has strong roots in Philadelphia, Orthodox as well. Synagogue practice is open, pretty casual. Most Jews are not religious. There's a select minority that enjoy going to shul, and most people just appreciate their Jewish heritage and identity. And that actually is the biggest challenge, which we're all facing around the world, is the loss of that identity because of the free nature of our societies are open, and intermarriage is a major issue for all of us. And this is something that the rabbi knows and community knows, is something that I'm very involved with, trying to provide alternatives for young adults to meet each other and become leaders in the Jewish community. But that's a whole nother story.
Thank you so much, Lou. Virtual Yasher Koach, and thank you for representing our community. And just, you know, Lou, just as a context, Lou worked for many years in the Israeli consulate in Philadelphia when it was here, and has done incredible work with young Jewish professionals. So a good person to represent us. And
the Nigerian friends know Uri.
Does anyone know Uri that Lou mentioned from
the Israeli ambassador?
There you go. So let's hear a little bit about what Jewish life is like in Nigeria. Chika, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Let's see, and then maybe you could tell us a little bit about life over there if you're comfortable. Let's see.
Let's see.
Can you hear us? Let's see. I don't see Shmuel on the call. Let's see here. Can you hear us? Well, maybe we'll talk a little bit about our topic, and then if people trickle in, we can always pause and kind of go back if that sounds good. Because when I was planning this session with Shmuel and Moshe Chizkiah, one of the topics that came up as a topic of mutual interest is this topic of what it means to be Jewish in public. Those of you who've been following international news know that the last year in particular, in addition to the devastation of COVID, there's been tremendous tumult in Nigeria and tremendous danger, and the government has been really it's been quite scary. And the Jewish community itself has been attacked directly by a number of different groups. And there are even groups that appropriate Jewish symbols, have nothing to do with Judaism, but they have Jewish symbols that they use, a kind of rebel group that's not favored by the government. And so the Jews are the unfair targets of all sorts of attacks. And so there were actually direct attacks on some of the synagogues this year. And even before this period, it was challenging to be Jewish outwardly. And there's a whole history of attempts to Christianize the area, or attempts, certain Muslim attempts also to encourage people to follow their religion. So those who've watched the documentary probably saw some of those tensions, especially in the aftermath of the Civil War that took place in Nigeria some years ago. So it's been, to be Jewish in Nigeria requires tremendous bravery and strength. And I stand in continual awe of the members of the community there who not only are facing tremendous threat, but are also self-motivated enough to learn themselves, teach themselves really, all these different things we take for granted, like they teach themselves Hebrew. In the documentary, there's a whole vivid kind of treatment about this, where they're actually teaching themselves. And there's some incredible like local leaders there who've done amazing work, including and especially Shmuel, our friend Shmuel, who is featured prominently in the documentary, who's from Tikvat, Yisrael. And so there are a number of different very prominent leaders. I'll share today some thoughts and reflections historically and kind of philosophically on some of the challenges and blessings of being Jewish publicly. And this remains a topic of global relevance to Jews, because as we know, especially in diaspora Judaism, we're always at some level at the whims of our host cultures and governments and how they feel about Jews. And even in places that tout themselves as liberal democracies, there are often certain threats, certain limitations on public expressions of Judaism. Hello, Shmuel. Yay, you're here. Okay. Now the party has started. All right. I'm going to pause actually briefly because I just started launching into the whole topic we're going to talk about. But I would love, Shmuel, if you'd be able to, we just did a little bit of sharing about what life is like in Yardley, Pennsylvania, kind of Philadelphia Jewish community. If you could share a little bit about what life is like in the Jewish community in Nigeria, we are all ears. I'm going to ask to unmute and maybe we can spotlight you also. All right.
Hello, shalom, everyone. Sorry, I'm coming on a little bit late. My name is Shmuel. I'm from the Jewish community in Nigeria. Well, in Nigeria, we are kind of all over the place, and we are not situated in one place, but we are more concentrated in the southeast of Nigeria. And in Nigeria, the Jewish community are just coming up. We don't have a proper community per se, in the sense that we don't live in one place. We all just all over the place. Little community, synagogue here and there. And we kind of lack all the basic amenities. We don't have a Jewish school, but we build synagogues for ourselves, where we meet to study the Torah and share our experiences and where we're coming from. And for the past 15 years that I am and my family, my mom and my dad, we started practicing Judaism, because we're kind of coming from more of a traditional, not a Christian home, but a traditional home. We followed our father's tradition before we switch over to mainstream Judaism. And this is how we've been for the past 15 years. And we are lucky to have had the presence of Rabbi Gorin. He was the first rabbi that we met from the United States. After him, some other rabbi has come through. Currently, in the past 5 years, the first one that brought Tikvat to us was Rabbi, forgot his name, but he's a rabbi from the United States also. He's from Rhode Island, that I know. And Jeff was the first person that made a documentary about us. He came with Rabbi Gorin, should be 1998 or so, if I'm not wrong. He did the Imagine Jewish of Africa movie, Imagine Jewish community like Nigeria. He did that with us. He spent about a month in Nigeria, in Abuja, with us, and he went through out the country to also talk with other people. And this is how we are launched to the world. Shalom.
Thank you so much, Shmuel. This is amazing. And I'm so happy you can be here. This is really an honor for us to be able to speak together and learn from you guys. And I was just saying before you came on, how incredible the what you guys have done in terms of, especially like what you've done, building up the community as a leader. You mentioned there's a number of rabbis who've come through your community, but they're more like temporary, like you really acted as a leader, in a very serious way. And I was sharing a little bit about the challenges, recent challenge news as the Jewish community has experienced. Someone's asking about how many Jews there are in Nigeria, approximately.
Well, I will place it at maybe around, because we have not really done census to know how many we are. The Igbos alone is about 40 million people in Nigeria. And I would say about 7% of these people are into mainstream Judaism of different denomination, maybe Orthodoxy or conservative. And there is a lot of Messianic Jews, a lot too, among them.
Mm.
Yes.
So a real range of different Jewish expressions.
Yes.
Yeah. So you would say that it's about, I mean, it's hard, I guess, as you say, because there's no like.
It's hard to place, but maybe about 1 million or plus.
Wow.
So maybe mainstream Judaism is being Messianic, more, maybe about 1 million or so, because when we try to organize the youth conferences, we travel around the country. It's usually a turn up, so we don't know how to put numbers to the faces we see. And we go to different community, different states. Nigeria has about 37 states. And in the 5 states in the Southeast, when we visit these states, there's a lot of huge turn up of people, hundreds of people, they come in different places because we don't have our conferences in one place because of the population. So we keep shifting location in one state. We can shift location like 2 or 3 synagogues so that we can be able to accommodate people, to talk to them, to hear their stories and all that.
Yeah, and what is the relationship like between the different, because there's a number of different Jewish communities and synagogues in Nigeria. Like, are there ever kind of conferences or you guys getting all together?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I
Sure.
didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was just wondering about, there's a number of different synagogues and communities in the Nigerian, there's, as you mentioned, there's so many Jews, but they're all over the place. And I'm wondering if there are ever, you mentioned kind of youth gatherings, ways for the whole community to get together.
Yes, there is usually huge gathering. I think there's every 3 months. There's a huge youth gathering in different states. In different states, this goes on every year. Every 3 months, there's a youth gathering. But for in recent time, because there's been insecurity in Nigeria, we have not done this. So for last year and this year, we've not done this because of maybe the COVID came. Then after the COVID, there was this huge insecurity in Nigeria, kidnapping, banditry. So we put a stop to, getting people to travel from different states to come over. But in Abuja, where I'm staying, we have 3 communities, but 2 are very strong. You understand? The 2 we interact with each other very well. And I think they combined 2 of them were about 100 persons in these 2 synagogues.
Cool, thank you so much. I see there's a couple other questions. One is, are there any mikvahs in Nigeria?
Any?
Mikvahs.
Mikvah?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, there's a mikvah. There's one mikvah in Port Harcourt. But in Abuja, there's a mikvah, but where is for the Tikvat, they have the mikvah in Abuja. Yeah, we don't go, but we use a natural body of water when we want to do a immersion or anything like that.
Let's see. Cool. And then another question was, in the documentary from many years ago,
Yes.
it describes your dream of going to rabbinical school, and someone was wondering if you were able to pursue that dream.
Yeah, we did. I did actually. Even my wife tried. She was offered one time. She got offered admission in a rabbinical school in Israel for women.
Oh wow!
But she was for women. I forgot the name, but I can send it to you. She was denied the visa because we can't really say we can't go to the embassy and say we are Jewish because they expect us to go through the conversion processes and which we have not done. And then they said because we are not Jewish, the school is not in a position to offer such scholarship for people coming from Nigeria. And I think I've tried this where there's a Ziegler School in California.
Yeah.
The same thing, yes. We have not been lucky to get admission into it.
Wow, it's amazing. Mazal tov is awesome. Yeah, and so let's see here. There's a few other questions. Okay, and then another person wanted to know about how is someone considered Jewish in Nigeria? Is it through the mother, or is intermarriage an issue there like it is in the United States?
Oh, all right. In my community, we go by the patriarchal system. So if I'm Jewish and I got married, if I intermarry, it's natural that my wife turned to become Jewish with me, and the children are Jewish. But then we say, okay, we're Israelites. So even though we don't encourage so much intermarriage with the other tribes. So we like to marry ourselves from different states so that we don't, because predominantly most people are it's either you're a Christian or a Muslim down here. So if you intermarry, you're a Christian.
Well, thank you so much. And there was a very specific question. So before you joined on the call, a member of our community, a leader in our community, Lou Bolsher, who worked with the Israeli consulate for some years in Philadelphia, wanted to know if you knew Ambassador Uri Pelty.
Yes, I do. I did when he was in Nigeria, when he was serving. He used to spend Shabbat Erev with us. He come to our synagogue, and sometimes he goes to the second synagogue that's in Abuja too. So he comes mostly Shabbat Erev with his family. And before he stand or round up, he came, we had a little party and then a send-off party for him and stuff. He was a good friend.
A small world.
Yes.
I guess thinking about our topic, today, I'll look at some sources together about being Jewish publicly. Curious to hear also about, obviously it's been a very difficult time in Nigeria in general, but especially for the Jewish community. What it's like being Jewish publicly. Are you able to be Jewish publicly? In other words, can you wear your kippah publicly? Like, what is it like for you? Yeah.
Before, it used to be fun to walk around with kippah and talit katan, but now, presently, it's not, because we have this issue of Biafra. It's obviously, I'm a Biafran too, because this is what happened before when Nigeria had a civil war. This secessionist part of the country, which we am from, declared Biafra, self-determination. Now there's a group who are taking up this cause, and so they openly embrace Judaism as their part of religion, and it had made it difficult for a Jew to walk the street with the yarmulke and the talit or the disease, because this group has been proscribed as terrorist group. So it's a difficult time for us now. And there's been a lot of arrests, even people in the synagogue. So we are being very, very careful when we go to synagogue. We don't want to attract attention to ourselves, because even though we do not belong to this group who are agitating to be separated from Nigeria, they still see us. They don't know the difference. You understand? So if you say you're Jewish, they say, oh, you belong to the group.
Yeah. So because of the association, because of like those symbols being used by the group.
Yes, they use the kippah, they use the talit, and they use the talit katan. So they dress like I dress. So right now I don't go out with my kippah, I just wear a hat.
Yeah.
Or a baseball cap and put my kippah in my pocket. I don't wear it in the public.
It's really interesting, Shmuel. Last week, we're doing a whole series where we're visiting different communities all over America, all over the world. And last week we were visiting with a community in Oklahoma City where there are a lot of messianists, like Christian messianists.
Yes.
And my friend who's the rabbi there was telling me that these non-Jewish evangelical Christians actually dress up as Jews, like they use a lot of the symbols. So it's interesting to hear how in two very different communities, there's this phenomenon of people dressing up as Jews and using Jewish symbols, but are not themselves Jewish. And that it creates this weird dynamic. It's really interesting, but it must be very, very hard for you guys. There's a question here about Jewish lineage. This was mentioned a little bit in the documentary about like kind of where you guys trace your ancestry. I know in the documentary it talks about through the tribe of Gad. And do you want to talk a little bit about, for those who haven't seen the documentary, kind of that whole story, because it's an incredible story.
Yes. Okay, there is 3 people that our ancestors tell us the stories. Like my father said, when I was in school and I read the little history book, that was the first time for me to hear this is where our story started from. So it was Gad, and some people say it was Eli, one of the sons of Yaakov, and Ephraim. So these are the 3 people that moved down from maybe Ethiopia down to sub-Saharan Africa, where we are. And they first settled in where there's a place they call Abuja. Abuja means the house of God in Eli. So this were the beginning, they first settled in the southeast of Nigeria. And this is where they spread, they cover the 5 states. So, depending on who is telling the story, so it's Abuja, it's Gad, Ephraim, or Eli.
Cool, cool. So a long and very interesting history. So another question was just asked about integrating into Israeli society. I know a number of folks from your community have studied in Israel or have moved
Yes.
to Israel. And amidst this whole ongoing news story about, you know, who's recognized based on where they're from, can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about kind of where things stand right now? Yeah.
Right now, I think we don't have a stand for now because we still have this big question left in my community between the elderly people and young people like my age. They don't want to pass through the conversion processes. They say they are Jewish. They don't need any confirmation from people to say, we are Jewish. The question is not even if we are going to be able to make the aliyah to Israel. They don't care. They just want to be here and be recognized as being Jewish. But for young people who aspire to go to the yeshiva one day in Israel, it becomes a question, do you really want to pass through the conversion process? Which, of course, I'm in support. I've been talking to a lot of people about it. It's just politics. I know what you want. For you to be able to be a rabbi, you need to go through this conversion process and study in a yeshiva and be a rabbi. You cannot write your own document out of thin air. There's a process for everybody to go through. Judaism, like we know it, for we, it's a tradition that we follow. It's not a religion until people start calling it religion. But now it's a religion to everybody. In a religious environment, there is processes to follow to aspire to be a clergy person, a man or a woman. So for now, I think we are talking to a lot of people about conversion. And Bezrat Hashem, there's one coming up in August. There's a conversion that's going to come up in August in Abuja here, and some states also in the East. And we hope it goes well, you know. This is the thing.
Mazel tov, that's awesome. B'shat tova. And so let's see, let's see. Okay, so there's a question about special traditions for different holidays in their community. Like what are kind of special, distinctive Jewish Nigerian traditions?
Yeah, I think first we keep kosher in our own way, but the people who are living in the riverline area also have this problem of the kind of fishes that is there. There's predominant fishes that are there, mostly are not kosher fish. And you still find some people who, you know, they'll still eat there's this fish that's called catfish in Nigeria. It's predominantly catfish in Nigeria. It's sort of the mackerel that is over there. Well, a lot of mackerel do come in from South Africa, and we have our own traditional meals that we eat, especially during Pesach. That a lot of things are not being eaten because of Hamas. But we do adhere to Sephardic tradition. We eat rice, beans, and we have tubers. We have a lot of tubers, yam and potato. So this is what we do.
Cool. Very cool. Any other, let's see, I'm just making sure anyone has any questions. How difficult is it to keep kosher in Nigeria is one of the questions.
It's difficult if you are living in a city. Like I live in a city, so I work. I have to take food from the home when I go to the office because I can't eat kosher outside. There is no kosher restaurant in Nigeria. You can't eat, except if you are buying vegetables. You can only eat, basically we prepare what we eat. We don't own businesses yet, so it's difficult, very difficult.
Thank you so much. And then there was a question about how many days of Yom Tov do you guys observe?
Yeah, okay, now this varies from community to community. Some people do 2 days and some people do 1 day. The argument has always been We are very close to Yisrael, so we don't need to do 2 days. The time difference is just 1 hour is the same. So, but some people understand that, okay, we follow the rabbinic tradition that say once you're outside Yisrael, you do 2 days of Seder night for Pesach. But sometimes we'll skip the 2 days of Pesach, but we still count 2 days when we count the Omer in terms of Simchat Torah and closing.
Mm. And there was a question also about special foods. So are there any kind of special foods you guys make, you know, for Shabbat, like special kind of to the area?
Yeah. Basically rice. Rice is the common food you see, but we do other food like cassava. It's a cassava delicacy. We might have soup for it. You know, something we have locals, a lot of soups that we can use with this cassava. It's called fufu. You understand? And we can make, we have yam. We have a lot, we basically eat a lot of tuber food. It's, you know, carbohydrates every day.
Yeah. Hearty stuff. There's a question. I think I understand. I'm not positive I understand it. And Carol, you can correct me if I misunderstand this question. Do the Jews in Nigeria, they tend to belong to particular occupation groups? Carol, do you mean like certain, like what kind of jobs are they usually? Okay, yeah, okay. So like here we have a lot of doctors and lawyers. Like what kind of jobs are most of the people in your community?
Okay. My people are predominantly traders, but there is no particular, in terms of professionalism, like being a doctor, a lawyer, they're all over the place. We have there is professor in my synagogue, in my synagogue. He's a lecturer in the university, and there is 2 lecturers in university in my synagogue, and there is a medical doctor, and they are lawyer. So there is no, for now, it's just to say the truth is most Jewish people I know are not working. They don't work, so they self-employed. Beside these few I mentioned, most are just self-employed.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything then.
A little bit of everything. No, this problem of Shabbat in Nigeria. When you get a work for the government or private sector, you have time. This hard time, you know, because you need to keep Shabbat, Yom Tov, and they don't like so much holidays. It's either they lay you off or you work on Yom Tov on Shabbat. So
like being an observant Jew has kind of forced some people to really be self-employed. So yes, it's amazing. So wow, that's incredible. There were some questions. Let's see, there were some more questions about. Yeah, I mean, so if you watch, I'm just answering. The documentary shows they actually do have some like physical synagogues. There was a question about how the presence of Boko Haram has impacted the community, the effects of Boko Haram.
Yeah, for us that is in the north, because I mean we're in the north central here. It's a big problem because we need to, you know, watch out for our own security. The government don't provide security for you, so you need to be careful to know who comes into the synagogue. It's not everybody. Everybody is not allowed. We need to understand where you're coming from. If you're not Igbo, and you are, because there is other tribes who are not Igbo, and they still practice Judaism. We need to verify, yes, that you're a Jew before we can allow you in. So this is the situation in Nigeria. But in the Southeast, where everybody around you are Igbo, and whoever comes in, you know that, okay, he's a Jew before you can come into the synagogue, except if he's a Christian who wants to know about Judaism.
Thank you. There's a question also about the effects of COVID, wondering if you guys
Yeah.
how vaccine distribution's been in Nigeria, and also wondering how that's affected the Jewish community in terms of how you guys gather right now. Like, so what does that look like right now with everything going on?
Last year when it was intense, we barely go to synagogues to pray. Only a few who stay just close to the synagogue will go. I didn't go to the synagogue for about 4 months that time, last year when it was intense. But now I go every day to the synagogue. So there is space, but in terms of the vaccination is another thing, because it's just for the government people. It's not enough. The one that's allocated to Nigerian is about 4 million doses, which is not enough. Nigeria is about 120 million people. So they have priority who will get the vaccines. But if you can afford it, because it's not free, if you can pay for it, they can give to you.
I see a few more questions. Let's see. One question is, how are like the younger generations of Nigerian Jews responding to their Jewish identity?
They love it. They love it because synagogue is the central place. This is the only place you can learn more. Like in Abuja, there is no Jewish school in Abuja. In Port Harcourt, there is a school owned by a Jewish person. So he's trying to run it to be a Jewish school. He's trying. He's really having a lot of support from the community. And there is one in Port Harcourt, there is one in Nnewi. So these are only 2 schools in Nigeria. But it's just we run it the way Nigerian school. You have to be in line with the curriculum of Nigerian day school. There's no special thing. The only special thing is tell the children to wear yarmulke, the kippah, and there is a section for Torah and Hebrew classes.
And related to that, a few people have been asking about youth education. So what does Jewish education look like? Bar bat mitzvah, like how does that look like in your community?
Yes, like I said, the synagogue is everything for us. Every bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah person, we come to the synagogue, you learn, we teach you whatever you want to know about your bar mitzvah. A lot of kids, they can read Hebrew. A lot of the young guys can read Hebrew. The only problem is that we don't understand every word we read, but we are trying, and they love it. When it comes, anybody coming up to bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, the excitement is always there, because they know they will have to showcase what they've learned for the past years.
And on a similar topic, there's people were asking about what weddings look like in the Jewish Nigerian community.
Yes, we have a Jewish wedding too, because we have our own traditional wedding, and we try to blend the 2 cultures together. Before we don't use talit for kuppah, but now we introduce it in the culture. Whoever is any Jewish person that is wedding, there is a kuppah for him, and we try to write our own
Ketubah?
Yes, ketubah, yes, and we write it too. And sometimes if we're lucky, they say, have a rabbi write for us and send, and we print.
So do you guys bring in rabbis to do the wedding, or do you do it yourselves? Like, do you?
No, we organize it ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, to bring in rabbi is a little bit expensive for everything, so we do it ourselves. And we'll ask if any rabbi will help write ketubah for us to present to the couple.
Do you have trained people for circumcisions, like for when you guys have?
Not yet. We just use the medical personnel among us, the nurse or a doctor.
That's always a challenge. Before we moved.
And I know traditionally there are people who is their work to do it. Not everybody. In a community that there's a family, this is their job, I said, this is their job. Go call her, go call him, and he will come and perform it.
So like medical professionals, yeah, who are, yeah.
And not medical, they are not medical professionals. This is the local people.
Yeah.
There is the medical people who, like, we're in the city, right? And we employ the services of the medical people to do it, and also a doctor. But in the village, where there is no medical people, they use the local people who know how to do it.
Cool. So it's amazing just how much you have to take things into your own
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you so much, because we have obviously gazillions of questions we're asking, but it's so interesting. And here's another one. Let's see. Is there any common heritage? This is the question, between the Jewish communities in Nigeria and Ethiopia. I think the answer, but I'll let you all answer. But is there any kind of common ancestor or same tribe?
Yeah, I think so. Because the stories has already been that our ancestors moved down from Ethiopia to here, which means we might have shared a common ancestor. Remy, I don't know if you have read his book. He wrote so much about this. Professor Remy, he's in US. He wrote a book, How We Moved Down to. He's the only person who has taken time to study these things and put it into writing. And he's, for me, he's doing a great job for that.
And okay, so someone wants to know if there's a large population of Nigerian Jewish women as well.
Yes, we are large. I think we are many, but we're not in one place. It's not like the whole place is our Jewish communities, but we are significant in number.
Mm-hmm.
We are many.
Yeah. So someone's asking if you have any questions for us, because we did an intro before. So if you have any questions for what Jewish life is like here we're on the extreme east side of Pennsylvania, so close to New York, kind of between Philadelphia and New York.
Yes, I wanted to invite some of my friends because I asked them to prepare a question, but I don't know if they know how to follow the links. But I'll just throw some of the questions they asked me. We've not really been to any organized Jewish community. So they were like, how did you guys do it to come together to live in one place? Was it easy, or it just come naturally to you guys?
Would someone like to answer?
Well, I guess I'll answer, is that in the US, there are Jews all over the place. They're primarily, I guess, in the New York area, in Florida and California, but Pennsylvania, they're all over the country. So in every community, there are enough Jews usually to form a synagogue and have a community. So we don't have to move to be together. If you move somewhere in the US, you find the local Jewish community and you join the synagogue.
Oh, that's nice.
It's kind of convenient. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes, it's good. It's the right answer.
What other questions do you have for us?
All right. Someone sent me maybe let me just a second. Let me get the question. Let me get the question from you.
Should we tell them how much a mile costs in the US, or just leave that out?
Rabbi, did he say what he does for a living?
Well, he's actually like a leader in the Jewish community locally. So he mentioned kind of like his studies and leading the community.
All right. Shalom. One of the questions he asked me is the stance of intermarriage. How is you guys taking it? How do you support intermarriage in your own community? And is it a problem?
Who wants to take that one on? All right, Kathy, go for it.
Intermarriage is increasing. I have a daughter, and she went to summer camps that were Jewish background, Zionist background. We kept the kosher home. She's been to Israel many times. Most of her friends on the East Coast are Jewish. And she met a man at work 15 years ago who became a good friend. And over the years, they remained friendly and then realized that they had stronger feelings. At first, I was concerned. I wanted to make sure, even though they're adults, what their plans were about traditions in their home. If they had children, what were they going to do? Fortunately, my son-in-law, though he was raised Catholic, he does not practice any religion. He had very little exposure to Judaism, and the children are being raised Jewish. But because of his family, they are introduced not necessarily to religion as much as some of the non-Jewish traditions. I wasn't sure if how this was going to be, but many of my friends have at least one child who has married someone who is not Jewish. And either they've chosen to celebrate all holidays or one or the other. Fortunately, my daughter is introducing the children to Judaism, even though where they live outside of San Francisco, Judaism is very different in the synagogues than it is on the East Coast. So they had to find one that was as close as possible. And fortunately, the rabbi is originally from the East Coast and East Coast trained, but it is multiplying, and we are, and even those who marry their partner is Jewish, they may not necessarily be observant.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It looks like Lou wants to jump in too. Lou, it's a little hard to hear you. Can you come closer to your mic?
Well, I think you're going to have to change your audio settings.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, intermarriage is a major issue in the American Jewish community. I consider it the major issue in the American Jewish community. Every 10 years, there's a study on Jewish population, and everyone gets Gewalt. The last major study said if you were not Orthodox, there is a 72% chance of intermarriage. 3 out of 4 kids get intermarried, and of that, the grandchildren, there's an 8% identification Jewishly. So 9 out of 10 kids are lost through intermarriage. This is something that is a major, major issue in the American Jewish community, and it's something that I've been working on this issue for the last 4 decades. So there's solutions. The rabbi's helping with solutions. There's some. I was just talking with one of the leaders of our shul earlier today. There's some strategic things that need to be done, and things that we need to do. So it is a major, major issue, and I'm always looking for partners to help.
I'm done.
Yeah, I have a question about this. Can we say the problem why the reason why the intermarriages is an issue in America between Jews and non-Jews because people are not interested in Judaism anymore, or they want to be like, they want to be like the rest of the world?
In my daughter's case, it was not a matter of giving up her heritage, her traditions at all. She still is observant. She fell in love with this man. It was not that she was turning her back on her heritage at all.
Yeah.
For many, they were not necessarily raised to be as observant, where my daughter was. That's why it was so surprising. Judaism is not observed as it was when I was younger, for my parents. It depends on where you live and what you choose to practice for your family.
Rabbi, I think you should respond. 'cause
I was gonna jump in actually, Dan, so you read my mind.
Okay, because
It's really the $1 million question is, do we practice Judaism because that's our only option, or because we really want to? In all of the years of Jewish shtetl life, let's say, like small Jewish communities that were forced by the government to live in these little ghettos, they didn't have another choice. So a lot of people, obviously, historically, were Jewish because they had to. But one of the interesting developments of the last few decades, not just here, and obviously anywhere, in Nigeria too, obviously, is an opt-in culture. In other words, like anything else in our lives, we have an incredible array of choices and freedom to choose what it is we want to do and who it is we want to be. And so it's a kind of complicated range of feelings about that, because like the example that Kathy gives, someone could be very positive about their Judaism but still be very much immersed in the secular culture and society and fall in love with someone who happens not to be Jewish. And so the question is, like, what do you do then? Or, I mean, there are cases of people who just aren't interested in their Judaism. It's not part of how they were raised. And this actually ties in interestingly to this question that we're going to talk about, in terms of being Jewish in public. Like, one of the blessings and challenges of the fact that many of us look more or less no different than our neighbors, whether they're Jewish or not, is that what we call is passing. We pass as we can be considered whatever the host culture is, without people stopping and realizing we're Jewish, unless we, put something on our head to make them know that we're Jewish, or wear tzitzit, or do something that makes us obviously Jewish. So this is like an interesting opportunity, because on the one hand, it might make things safer for us. On the other hand, it might actually endanger our continuity, because people might, fall in love with us, and then we're creating that most essential community, which is our home community, with someone who doesn't carry the same values and practices as we do Jewishly. So this is an exploding issue. And as Lou pointed out, in every study that's been conducted in the last few years, one of central interest and focus for people doing these demographic studies, researchers. And I'm interested, actually, like in our own, in this community, in Bethel, intermarriage is not as much of an issue as it was in the community I served previously. I was in a remote community, and somebody actually mentioned in the comments about smaller communities in North America. Like, when you're in a smaller community in North America, like in a more far out place, it is much harder to meet someone who's Jewish. I often joke by calling this area the bagel belt. There's this reference to the Bible Belt in the American South, with all the people who are so religious. So I refer to this as the bagel belt, because there's so many Jews in this area, New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And so it's much easier, even if you go to like a public school, to meet Jews, or to be near other Jewish communities. But for example, the community that I served in Canada when I was there, it was the exception if two young people married and they were both Jewish in our community. It was really the rule that most people intermarried, and not because they necessarily wanted to do, but because that was what, who was there. So it's a huge question, and so one thing I was going to say related to this question of showing our Jewish identities publicly. There's this famous rabbi that many of you will be familiar with, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, who's known more famously by his name, the Chafetz Chaim, who is very responsible for the Musar movement, the ethics movement of the late 19th century. And he wrote this letter when he was living in Russia, saying and decrying, like basically blaming his fellow Jews for the state of Judaism there. He said, right now it's so hard because the government, I think he's referring to the communist government, is not allowing us to learn Jewishly. They're not allowing us to, wear our tefillin or go to these schools or, do all the things or have mikvahs or all the things that make Jewish life, upholding, family law. And what he said, which was so interesting to me, is he blamed his fellow Jews by saying, because people aren't observing these things, it gives the local government more power to get rid of all of these things. And he was optimistic that if we still blaze on and if we still, study Torah and, and go to the mikvah and wear tefillin and do all these things that are expressions publicly of our Judaism, even if the government says no, that's what's going to save Judaism. Now, I'm sure any of his fellow Russian Jews reading this at the time would have been really annoyed at him. But the point being that he took a very extreme view that the way that Jewish continuity or the way Judaism will thrive is by a very specific kind of Judaism, a religious Judaism, a Judaism that really concerns itself with its demographics. Looks like Dan has a question. I'm going to unmute Dan.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. Obviously, you struck a chord, Samuel, which means that we all feel strongly about this, but there are different sects of Judaism in the US. There's Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, and many others. And you should know that there's a community of Orthodox Jews who follow all the religious laws very strictly. They're very tribal, very close, and they have very little of an intermarriage problem. It's very, very strong rates of people staying within the religion. We're in the conservative movement, and we have wonderful things like, as you see, a woman rabbi, which you don't have if you're an Orthodox community. But we have to deal with the fact that we're less strongly within one group. And so for us, intermarriage is a big problem. But there are other groups in the US where it's not such a big problem.
Yeah, it tends to vary also by like where you are even geographically, as I mentioned, that plays a role as well. But it's a really excellent question and one that's very much in our minds all the time as American Jews. Yeah.
I think we have that the same problem here in our community too, because one, it's either you are not finding, let's say you are ready to get married, but there's nobody to marry. Because, you're looking at the poverty level in the community and you want a good life. So you're looking outside, right? Or maybe you're in school, and the school where you find yourself, there are no Jewish people in the school. I went to school, the way I went to Polytechnic, there are no Jewish people when I went to Polytechnic. So I didn't make a lot of friends. I was kept to myself. I have circle friends for just maybe for study or research purposes. There was nothing there. You couldn't get the relationship with anybody until you're back home and you try to, or, you look towards other communities. When I wanted to get married, I was looking towards other community. My wife's from community in the East, and she was lucky. I was the lucky one. She happened to come to Abuja because she was pursuing her rabbinical dreams. Unfortunately, she didn't have it. This is when I met her. She was trying to go to the embassy, and I know people in the embassy. And I was trying to tell her what to do, how to go about it. And this is how I met her. I said, okay, and we get into a relationship. And after a year, we got married. Baruch Hashem, I have two girls now. but for other people, it's a difficult choice to make. You understand? And at the end of the day, you find them getting married to Christians. Nobody's looking towards the Islamic part. It's always a problem because of the two differences. It's the same problem here in Nigeria, but it's not the question of they are not interested in Judaism. But at the end of the day, find out that the family they get married into don't practice Judaism anymore. This is the problem.
It's such an interesting challenge, I think, in any community.
Yeah.
To try to find a Jewish partner. Any other questions for us?
Oh yeah, I'll get one. I don't know. So there's this the guy asked me a question. What is the mission of the Jewish people? He asked me. And all right. And he asked, what is the view on conversion?
So anyone want to take views on conversion or the mission of the Jewish, of at least our Jewish people?
He asked me
how many hours do you have?
I was laughing all day. I was like, come on, man.
How many people do we have on the Zoom? Because they'll each give you another answer.
Yes.
It's like 31 Jews, 58 opinions or something.
Of course. I for me, I understand what the question is all about, because him is coming from a Christian background. You understand? They have only two opinions. It's either you're going to heaven or going to hellfire. But this is not Judaism. For me, I told him, I said, well, there is no mission per se. I don't want to make the world a better place for everybody. Feel free to worship God the way you understand him. Maybe one day, according to the Torah, when the Messiah comes, everybody will worship Hashem, and the way the Jewish people worship Hashem.
One of the things that I think is one of our greatest strong points, and this is not so much about us specifically as a community, but just Jewishly globally, is that historically, I think we're the only major world religion that's never tried to coerce, to force other people to be like us through violence, never. And I think part of that is because we don't try to convert people. We don't try to convert people. If people want to convert, if they want to convert, that's great. But we're never going to actively ask them to. And so the power that Judaism has is the power on its own terms. In other words, the power of the study and the questioning. And people see the power isn't the power of like the sword or forced conversions. It's the actual internal value. And this is, to me, one of the really most beautiful aspects of our tradition. And so I think that's something that I always think about in terms of conversion. But we're all, this is kind of a cliche, but we're all Jews by choice to a large extent, because nothing in our world makes, unless you live in a very Orthodox community, nothing comes automatic in Jewish life. In other words, you have to kind of create it yourself. So it takes a lot of determination and intention to create for yourself a Jewish life. So even though when we talk about conversion, we call them Jews by choice, really everyone today is really a Jew by choice.
It's Jew by choice.
Yeah.
Okay, I will respond to some of the questions that I saw about, is there a J date in Nigeria? No, there's not a J date in Nigeria. And the second one is there going to be immigration of Jews of Nigeria to Israel? I don't see that. Most of us are very, very attached to the land. We don't want to leave, feel more comfortable here. We just want to be more, practice Judaism the best way we can, with all the things that's attached, what people enjoy in Israel, in America, or other country. But yes, people who are like me, I do really want to visit Israel. when you and your husband was studying in Israel, me and my brother used to be a student. You sent a lot of teachings from Israel when you were a student there. And, I just want to, learn, come back. There's a lot of people here who are thirsty for knowledge, who want to learn, who want to practice Judaism the best way they can. Keep kosher, keep kosher not only when you're in your house, even when you go out. I just want to see that here in Nigeria. So Nigeria is a very big place, especially the Southeast. If let's say 40% of the people down there become Jewish, it will surpass Israel to be the biggest, the bigger place where you can find Jewish people in one place. It's not to replace Israel as the Holy Land, but it's a place of interest. And besides 120 million people moving to Israel, then we chase the Arabs, so it's going to be another problem for the Arabs there.
So the government should be incentivizing Nigerian Aliyah.
Yes, if we had more Jewish people in government in Nigeria, it will help to build a good relationship between Nigeria and Israel, the same way America and Israel enjoy. There's a very good relationship. Israel is getting a lot of support from America. I think Nigeria can do the same. But because Nigeria is political, we're divided as a people. The government of the day don't like my people at all. So there's few of us in the government to even make government to support, to give a hand and a voice to Israel in Nigeria. I think this is something we want to see in the future.
Amen.
Amen.
See here. Any other questions or? Let's see here. I'm looking around. Yeah, I think to circle back to kind of the topic we had talked about a little bit, but this has been such a rich conversation. I don't want to derail it. It's incredible to think about the challenges of looking like putting on the kind of markers of Judaism. So whether it's a kippah, whether it's tzitzit, anything, or tefillin, anything that will identify us as Jewish. And this is part of a larger, I think, global phenomenon. Obviously, almost 20 years ago in France, in Paris, there was a ban, against people wearing kippah or Star of David in public schools. And obviously it's become more anti-Semitic kind of tensions in recent years, but obviously Nigeria, you're dealing with similar kinds of challenges. And I think back to, the original kind of tension in our people's history of being Jewish outwardly in an environment where that's not appreciated or not accepted. I'm thinking specifically, in the last quarter of the 2nd century BCE, where the story of the Maccabees takes place, because there, as we read in the story of the Maccabees, in the books of the Maccabees, there were actually people who were trying to surgically reverse their circumcision because of the Syrian Greeks that were pressuring them to do so. And the Maccabees' reaction, their response was to fight back, famously. That's the whole story of Hanukkah, is fighting back. But interestingly, if you look at kind of the history since then, when you look at rabbinic sources, when they describe different environments where it's hard to be Jewish or hard to be Jewish, publicly or visibly, the rabbinic response is always, be Jewish, but be careful, right? Like, They don't usually encourage fighting. And so I think all of us, whether in the United States, where unfortunately we've been dealing with heightened anti-Semitism as well, but not as dramatically, I think, as in Nigeria. I think in Nigeria it's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah, it's interesting how all of our communities have taken it seriously, but have chosen to kind of think about nonviolent ways to try to get around it and figure out how to make the most of it despite the challenges and the threats. which is just interesting as a kind of character. You know, this goes back to our point about we don't force our religion on other people violently. We also, even when we're targeted, we tend not to double down and respond in a kind of physical or, you know, fighting kind of way. And so it's pretty remarkable. And I have a lot of respect. I just want to, you know, emphasize how much admiration, you know, I have, and I know my husband too, and all of us for the incredible holy work that you've been doing all these years, you know, in Abuja and all of the Nigerian Jewish community. It's hard work. And I was really excited to have our community meet you and kind of hear about this work, because it's so unusual and different than what, you know, when we go to the supermarket, there's a whole kosher section, you know, it's a whole different world. And just want to say thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your insights. I hope this conversation can continue. And I want to just thank everybody for being here this afternoon. And also just want to do a plug. We're gonna continue our traveling. This is a whole series. The next place we're traveling to is Stockholm, Sweden, in a couple weeks, and so it's a totally different community. And I want to thank. I'm just grateful to God for the opportunity to, even and especially in these crazy and isolating times, to travel virtually and to get to see friends from a long time in real time, and share the beauty of Judaism together in all of its beautiful different expressions. So I hope everyone is a healthy, and I also want to wish Shmuel, especially, you know, given all of what's going on in your community, just a special bracha, a blessing to your whole community for health and safety and protection, and for mazel. And may you continue to shine brightly. And some people are asking about questions about like what we can do. They're asking in the chat things we can do in any way to be of support and of partners to the Nigerian Jewish community.
Oh yeah, like there is a lot of things people ask me always. Where can I get tefillin? Where can I get talit? Is it this book and that book? And so it takes a terrible amount of time to buy one book from the internet, plus the cost of shipping. Sometimes the book get lost in transit and all that, because, you know, buying one book is difficult enough. And I think basically what we need is, you know, study materials. I have this doctor friend of mine, he asked me, he needs talit, he needs this. You know, I send him sites where you can buy them, but you know, they still want me to do it for them, and the cost of shipping and sometimes time schedule is crazy. We appreciate, you know, study material, tefillin, books, anyone, they will be happy to receive.
And I know I was speaking to my friend Jeff, you know, the filmmaker I mentioned at the beginning of the session, Jeff Lieberman, who's actually been collecting some materials. And I know Jeff has been waiting to send some things because he found that it's better to do it as a giant shipment. Yeah. So if anyone's interested, you can kind of contact me offline later, and we can talk about sending some stuff also with Jeff's shipment, because Jeff's been working on this, and he was going to potentially come today, but I don't think he ended up coming. But he's amazing and a good friend too. And yeah, no, it's hopefully when we're all past this moment, we're all vaccinated, it'd be great to all of us get together. That's the dream.
Thank you.
And anyway, you take care, Shmuel, and warm regards to your family. And thank you everybody for all of your questions, comments. This was, as always, a lot of fun, and everyone should take good care.
Thank you, everyone.
Cholaim tovim. Good afternoon. And Laila tov to you.
Bye.
Shalom.
Thank you. Bye.
Shalom.